Good morning, LAPCS scholars. Mr. Rowley here for the last part of Monroe and the Era of Good Feelings. Again, you will be filling out your graphic organizer. So you should be finishing it today. Make sure you share it with Ms. Marks and I. And you're going to answer the question that's at the end of this slideshow. All right, here we go. Foreign policies after the War of 1812. The Rush-Bagot Treaty of 1818. It provided for a large demilitarization of the Great Lakes and Lake Champlain, where many British naval arrangements and forts still remain. So essentially, all those military installations that were there were taken away. Laid the basis for a demilitarized boundary between the United States and British North America, which is currently Canada. Treaty of 1818 was negotiated by John Quincy Adams. Provisions in it were it fixed the American-Canadian border at the 49th parallel from the Lake Woods to the Rocky Mountains. So it set the border between the United States of America and Canada. It created a 10-year joint occupation of the Oregon Territory. That's all that territory that was out west. It allowed Americans to share the Newfoundland fisheries with Canada. Okay, so that's John Quincy Adams there. The Florida Purchase Treaty of 1819, also known as the Adams-Onis Treaty. The background was the United States already claimed West Florida as a result of the War of 1812. Revolutions in South America forced Spain to move its troops out from Florida. So essentially up to this point, Spain had control of Florida, but because a lot of the Spanish territories south of Florida were going through all these revolutions in Latin America, they were losing their ability to keep hold of Florida. Indians, runaway slaves, and white outcasts poured across the border into U.S. territory to attack settlers and then retreat south of the border, which was a problem. It meant that the United States had to do something about it. So Monroe ordered Andrew Jackson to attack the Indians and, if necessary, pursue them back in Florida. He was to respect all Spanish posts. That's what you're supposed to do. So Jackson swept through the central and eastern Florida during the First Seminole War from 1816 to 1818. So essentially, this is the first official war between what is the United States federal government and the Native American warriors of the Seminoles. Captured Spanish cities and deposed the Spanish governor, which was him disobeying Monroe's orders. Jackson executed 2 Indian chiefs and British supporters of Spain. Andrew Jackson would become our president eventually, so this is important information, background information on him. John Quincy Adams convinced Monroe's cabinet to offer Spain an ultimatum. So an ultimatum is an important part of this because it was very clear, like, hey, you're going to have to do this or we're going to go for you. So control the outlaws of Florida, which Spain was not equipped to do, like I said, because there was so much going on in Latin America, or cede Florida to the United States. In other words, give Florida to the United States or sell Florida to the United States. Spain realized it would lose Florida in any case and decided to negotiate. So Spain ceded or gave Florida as well as claims to the Oregon Territory in the U.S. to the United States of America. The United States abandoned claims to Texas, which would later become part of Mexico. And we're going to talk about Texas coming up next week. The Monroe Doctrine. European monarchies were concerned about democratic revolutions at home and abroad. So all these places that had kings and queens were concerned about all these governments that were springing up that were governments for the people by the people, such as the United States. They saw democracy as a threat to absolute monarchy. Absolute monarchy is when the king or queen has complete control. Sought to restore newly independent Latin American republics to Spanish rule. So this is important. So in Latin America, Spain had control of a lot of places in Latin America. But during this time period, there were all these revolutions from these places that were they were becoming independent, and they wanted to be more like what the United States is, a democracy. So the monarchs of Europe wanted that to not happen. Americans were alarmed at European hostility to democracy in the Western Hemisphere. So the Western Hemisphere is North America, Central America, and South America. And so the United States was like, well, hold on now, this is our area, okay? So this is Monroe Doctrine is a reaction to it. Great Britain sought a joint alliance with the United States. It's the first time that Great Britain and the United States were sort of working together. Secretary of State John Quincy Adams felt that Britain wanted an alliance in order to stop the U.S. from expanding into Latin America. So at the time, they thought that the United States, instead of just going west, we're going to go south as well. President Monroe's annual message to Congress warned Europeans colonial powers could keep existing colonies but gain no new ones. So if Europeans had control of colonies in South America or Central America, they were allowed to keep them, but they were not allowed to claim any new ones. Leave America alone, let the new republics govern themselves. So they wanted the Europeans to stay out of it, let these countries become democracies, republics, however they want. Directed largely at Russia, which had designs on the Pacific coast. So if you look at this, this is the Western Hemisphere. So here we have North America, Central America, and South America. And they're saying, hey, you Europeans, you need to stay out of there, okay? So impact, well, the immediate impact of the Monroe Doctrine was small. It was really just words because the United States didn't have that powerful of a military. So yeah, the US Navy and Army remained small and relatively weak. Became more important when President Polk revived it in 1845. That's when the United States started sort of building up its military, but only sometimes. It wasn't until 1945, after World War II ended, that the United States would continuously have a strong military like we do now. We've had a strong military ever since that time period, but when we're talking about the 1800s, off and on, it was never a long-term thing. But the long-term impact of the policy was very significant. So it served as the cornerstone of US foreign policy during the last half of the 19th century, which is the 1800s, and throughout the 20th century and continues to this day. Basically, essentially, now we have that power. And so what will happen is that if any country, anywhere in South America, even as far as you know, Peru, for instance, or Argentina, if some other world power decided to attack them, they would be dealing with the United States. The United States would go down and protect them. And everyone around the world knows that the United States is constantly a force throughout all of the Americas. So even though in 1823 it wasn't really a reality, it became a reality where the United States really could keep Europeans and anybody else out of the Americas on behalf of all of the countries in the Americas. So from Canada all the way south. So here's a comprehension check. This is what you're going to answer on your graphic organizer. So describe the Monroe Doctrine. Tell me what it is. Explain its impact on foreign affairs in at least 5 sentences. So we explain that in there. How would this new sense of national pride brought by the Monroe Doctrine change the language people use in literature from angry and cold language of the Enlightenment? In other words, it added a sense of security. It added a sense of like, okay, we've got some power here where we're really trying to become this independent, strong nation. And it made people feel a certain amount of pride and nationalism. So how would that change from the literature of the Enlightenment? Okay, so how does it transform into Romanticism? So that's it. So make sure you do that. share it with Miss Marks and I, and see you later.